So the next person I have the honor of introducing is another of Jimmy's best friends. These two are thick as thieves, as they say, and their friendship goes back 50 years almost to the day. These two met when Jimmy was 20 and Steve Metcalf was 22, working on George McGovern's presidential campaign. And these two together, they are mischief makers. One has a quiet chuckle and the other a loud belly laugh that you can hear all across the field. They both laugh at their own jokes and at each other's jokes. We all know that Jimmy is the master of joke telling. Actually, the dirty jokes he is the master of telling those. But I am pretty sure that he gets all of his material from Steve Metcalf. Steve, who is from Western North Carolina, was Buncombe County's first professional manager. He spent much of his career in Raleigh. He worked for Governor Jim Hunt in his administration before being elected to the North Carolina State Senate, and later as a successful North Carolina lobbyist. He has represented the interests of municipalities, the Cherokees, and the North Carolina Pork Council, better known as the pig farmers. Like the pigs, I'll let Steve wallow in the mud and give you the dirt on Jimmy.
Oh, goodness. Here, Dee Dee? It's good?
Sure, just don't take my paper.
I got you. Our friend Wallace Hyde told me a long time ago, he said, Steve, let me tell you something, brother, when you're running for politics, you're running for public office, timing is everything. I have the poorest timing in the world tonight to follow Roger and John. It's an outstanding job. I must say, though, when Dee Dee was introducing Megan and Sandy, and she said there's two women here tonight, I kind of dug down. I said, oh my God.
Push this real quick. Make sure that it's hard to hear back there.
We good?
Yeah,
Okay.
let me hold on that. There you go. For everybody.
Should I repeat that? That was a pretty good start. I'll say it again.
Yeah.
Let me just say, I'm extremely honored to be a part of this program tonight, Jim. And I look around this room and I see so many people, and everybody in this room, because it's your talent, it's who you are, feel like they all have a very special relationship with you. And they all could be doing this, probably I should be doing this rather than myself. So I say to Valerie and Dee Dee and Alicia, thank you so very much for honoring me to be a part of this. Let me just say, starting out, a word to Sandy and Megan. Thank you so much. Your words and the things you shared to us about Jimmy growing up, I'm not surprised. I understand. But Jimmy loves you, and we know that, and I think of your family and your children and how good Jimmy has been to your children over the years. Jimmy, I think about your mom tonight. She'd be very proud. I think of Bird, and not so much. Now, Bird was an interesting fellow. He was one of my favorite people on earth. I'd known Jim for about, I guess, 10 years, and we were talking one day, and we were being pretty catty about things that, well, we were laughing at people's names that had funny names, and you know, what is what Jim and I got to do except sit around and laugh at people's names? And he mentioned somebody's name, and I said, well, that's about as funny as Edgar Bird. And he said, don't make fun of my daddy's name. I said, I'm not. I'm making fun of my daddy's name. So here with my best friend, our daddies had the same name. And it wasn't like James David or Stephen Michael. It was Edgar Bird or Bird Edgar. And they both went by Bird. Jimmy's a Southern boy, and he's proud of the South. He always told me, he said, the North is a direction, the South is a place. And so being Southern, we have some values that are very important to us. one of those values is friendship. So I was honored, and I've cleared this one with Val, but I was honored years ago when he called me and said, Steve, I'm getting married. Will you be my best man? And this was a long time ago. This was not 27 years ago. This was 40 years ago. And I said, I was honored. I said, sure, that's great. It's great to have a friend like Jim to be in his wedding and do all that stuff that you do at weddings and be honored with that. Well, I kind of got less enamored with it when he called me 2 years later and said, Steve, can you testify for me in a...
He's a friend.
There was some issue over a painting. I don't know exactly what it was, but so I loaded up Alicia, and here we went. And we sat there in that courtroom, and I said, Alicia, what are you going to say? And she said, hell, I don't know what I'm going to say. And so I remember, Judge, I reminded Jimmy, perjury is it's a serious crime. But I suspect the statute of limitations is running on that. 50 years is a long time to know someone, to be friends with someone. I've known John, but also known Jim. Who'll be doing this for tonight? I've got my notes here. I've known Jim for a long time, and a lot of things happened that were important to Jim during that time, during this last 50 years. I've known Jim before Al Gore invented the internet. I've known Jim before Elon Musk developed the Tesla. I've known Jim when he only owned 3 cars, 4 cell phones. The fondest memory I have of Jim, or one of the fondest memories I have of Jim, is a story when he was looking at the property that he now calls Tranquility Cove. And it was an important part of his life. I honestly believe it was a turning point in a lot of ways in Jim's life. He asked me to come and look at the property with him, and we walked that property with Frank. Remember that day we walked the property with Frank, and Frank went through the gorgeous history of that land. It's about 38 acres, and we walked the ridge line, and we walked the whole boundary line. Frank had raised 8 children in that cabin, and you could tell that Frank loved that property as much as life itself. And Jimmy knew that too. We both picked up on that. And Frank felt good at the end of the day that Jimmy would take that property and nurture it, be good to it, not sell it, not divide it up. That would be his place. And over the years, that's become his respite. It's become his refuge. I would call Jimmy from time to time and say, you know, are you in town? Or he'd call me and say, I'm in town. Why don't you come on out to the farm? Well, I never did quite understand that. He called it a farm. I wonder, what are you growing out there, Jim? So after he named it Tranquility Cove, I got a pretty good idea what was going on. Boy, that propaganda is what I got to say. Dee Dee has asked me to tell some personal stories. I won't. So I asked Jimmy, I said, what can I say? And he said, a better question is, what you will not say. Just make something up. He said, lie if you have to, but God Almighty, don't tell the truth when you're up there. I will say that there have been times that through our youthful indiscretion, we have probably had questionable judgment about some of the things we did in some of the cities we were at. But we served each other well, and over time, Jim and I enjoyed questioning that judgment in cities of San Francisco, New York, New Orleans, Atlanta, I can go on, Raleigh, Chicago, Washington, D.C., Montego Bay, Asheville, Leicester, and Chesterfield. But I will tell you this, and let me just make this is extremely important. I will tell you that when Jimmy did use some good judgment, some 27 years ago, when he convinced Valerie to be a life partner and to go with him on the rest of this journey. Valerie, you may have saved the child's life.
He still cries.
I understand that so well because my bride has probably done the same for me, and we appreciate that. Dee Dee's right. I first met Jimmy at a Democratic headquarters in Burke County. Claude, it was in 1972. It was during the McGovern campaign. I had a district for George McGovern, 10th Congressional District. In that district, I think Jim went all the way from Boone down to Gastonia. It was an important election. It was, it was one of those turning point elections in our life. And for the last 50 years, with Jimmy and others, we've almost had a front row seat on the political history of our country. That year, Jesse beat Nick Galifianakis. Jesse Helms beat Nick Galifianakis. Holshouser beat Skipper Bowles. And of course, George McGovern lost. And when you're 22 years old, you think George McGovern is going to be president of the United States. It was a bitter loss. Jimmy and I got to know each other, and we shared a lot of things about each other that made us, we were both union kids. His mom in a textile mill, my dad in a textile mill. The first person I ever voted for, besides myself, I was on the ballot the first time I ran, but the second person I ever voted for was Wilbur Hobby, who was president of the AFL-CIO. He ran for governor of North Carolina in that primary against Skipper Bowles. Well, let me say, at that time it was obvious that Jimmy had a passion for his convictions and for public service. It's not changed over these last 50 years. He still takes public service seriously and holds those in public life to an exacting standard. More importantly, Jim is interested in government, and politics. It's never been for himself. It's always, his participation and advocacy has always been for those fellow North Carolinians who struggle with the daily challenges of providing a living and an education for their families. Jim is generous with his financial support for those politicians. He gets, if you ride down the road with him sometime, you'll get a lot of calls. For those politicians, programs, projects, scholarships that enhance the lives of working families. Jim is also generous with his time and spirit. He is a friend to all, never forgets his roots in Burke County, rural Burke County. Jim looks forward and brings out the very best in every one of us. He is always helpful, always respectful, always a friend. I hope I can finish this thing. Jim, I will close by stating the obvious. Jim, you are a proud and loyal son of North Carolina. You love North Carolina and her people. You are a student of our state's history, and you hold close those values that make North Carolina the very special place that it is. I am confident that North Carolina has never had a better friend, and that North Carolina is a better place because of you, Jim. I know I have never had a better friend, and I know that I am a better person by that friendship. So happy birthday, big guy. Let's do this again in 50 years.